Good afternoon, everyone. We'd like to get started with our bill hearing. We're going to start first this afternoon with Senate Bill 533, Senators Quarterman and McKay.
You're okay if I bring mine?
Absolutely. So where would you like?
Thank you, Madam Chair, Vice Chair, members of the Budget and Tax Committee. For the record, Senator Paul Quarterman, District 2, representing Washington and Frederick counties. Thank you for the opportunity to present Senate Bill 532, Washington County Emissions and Amusement Tax Repeal. Colleagues, we are all equally aware of the strain the current economic climate has placed on both our citizens and our business community. And during the legislative interim, our office received inquiries from multiple businesses throughout our county, all originated on their own, some within municipalities, some within the county itself, inquiring about our admissions and amusement tax. One of those businesses reached out. You will meet today. They're here with me as we speak, or as I speak here today. They came down here from Washington County because this is important to them. This is important to their business and their family, and they want to have an opportunity to speak with you here today as well. This bill really is about our county being proactive and identifying opportunities that we can help reduce the tax burden on those that we are elected to represent, while at the same time maintaining the core responsibilities of the governments that serve them. This bill would eliminate the amusement tax in Washington County on both the county and the municipality level. We understand the legislation is enabling legislation, and the county and municipalities have the ability to do this. However, the fact remains they have not done so in nearly the 80 years that this tax was enacted. For those who are unaware, the emissions amusement tax was enacted in 1936 here in Maryland. And at the time, the comptroller was directed to pay all the sums collected into the state fund for the aid for the needy. Currently, the emissions amusement tax is a local tax that is now collected by the comptroller. However, that entire amount of the tax is then, well, less some administrative expenses, is returned back to the municipalities and the counties. The state emissions amusement tax on electronic bingo and electronic tip jars is directed to the state's general fund. All the other taxes go back to the local general funds of whatever municipality or to the county. So in preparation for this bill, our office reached out to all the municipalities in Washington County. We reached out to the finance department of the county themselves, and we requested basically the last 5 years of revenue that this tax has generated on both the municipal level as well as on the county as a whole. Uploaded under the testimony section, we'll see basically a chart that we created that has all those amounts. And what you'll find here that, relatively speaking, is actually a pretty small amount to the actual governments themselves. In fact, it's on about approximate average of about 0.5% of their overall general fund. So a better way to describe it, it's essentially 1/2 of 1%. So 99.5% of the general funds would remain unaffected with any of these entities. Now, obviously, this bill is a local bill, and as such, we've had conversations with our local county commissioners. We've had conversations with our delegation. Interesting enough, when initially discussed with the county commissioners, they all expressed support in doing this. However, most recently, when they brought it in their session, they kind of flip-flopped and kind of having some additional conversations about that. So we're continuing this conversation with our delegation. Obviously, we're hopeful at a minimum, this conversation here today will help to encourage our locals to take action. And we're also going to continue the conversation with our delegation, as I discussed, and we'll get back to the committee as those conversations continue. The tourism community in Washington County fully supports this bill, as again, this current tax places a burden on families and a lot of small businesses in our community. So we appreciate the time you've allowed us here today. We would ask for your consideration and a favorable report in Senate Bill 533. I'd like to turn it over to the Rotzes here. So thank you.
Hello. My name is Christy Rotz. This is my husband, Tim. Together, we own and operate Antietam Entertainment, a dinner theater in Hagerstown, Maryland. Together, we strongly support Senate Bill 533, which would repeal the 10% admission and amusement tax in Washington County. While the cost of food, labor, and materials continue to rise, in order to maintain our business, so do our prices. A large demographic of our patrons are senior citizens on a fixed income, and the 10% admission and amusement tax is negatively affecting the affordability of family-friendly entertainment in Washington County. The issue of this admission and amusement tax is exacerbated by the fact that we live in the tri-state area and are among the only county to impose such a tax. This causes both confusion and frustration from our patrons, especially considering our neighboring Frederick County, also in Maryland, does not impose such a tax. Our box office staff is often met with hostility and questioning, as customers find it hard to understand why we're charging them a 10% admission and amusement tax instead of the standard 6% sales tax in Maryland. For the above-mentioned reasons, we respectfully and without reservation urge the repeal of Washington County's local admission and amusement tax. Both business owners and customers alike in Washington County will be greatly served by the passing of this bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions? Thank you.
Thanks.
Before we transition to the next bill, I just want to make the announcement. We will still be having the capital budget hearing after our bill hearing today. So please stay tuned. It's going to be a long afternoon. Okay, Senator Quarterman, you can stay right there for Senate Bill 865.
All right. Thank you guys again. Thank you, Madam Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. For the record, Senator Paul Quarterman, District 2, representing Washington and Frederick County. Thanks for the opportunity to present Senate Bill 865, the Western Maryland Economic Future Investment Board and Senator George Edwards Fund. Western Maryland and our representatives in Western Maryland and all throughout the through the region are extremely thankful and grateful for the support of this committee and the General Assembly for the significant investment that was made into our region last year with the passage of that bill. The fund has begun considering the opportunities of administrating the fund. But this bill will basically clarify certain aspects of the legislation. And really, it's more administrative than anything, providing some structure and some oversight of the fund. The last several years, the focus really had been on the money aspect of it. As you guys are all aware from our former colleague of how important this was to him, and really the main focus was on the money. And it was created originally out of a task force. And what we found that some of the language from the task force kind of bled into the bill last year. And so this really comes down to two things. One, it would allow for an executive director of the fund. This is $50 million of state money. There's no self-dedicated staff. There is some involvement from Tri-County Council and the Department of Commerce, but there really is no one directly responsible for the fund. So it would set up and basically allow for an executive director of the fund. And then it would also establish, a little more structure within the board. Now, what happened here is so there's a cross file in the House also. So Delegate Buckle, who worked on this with Senator Edwards at the time, has been their bill for the last couple of years. And so Delegate Buckle and I started working with bill drafting. And as we've all experienced sometimes, conceptual concept really comes out, not what we actually intended. And they created, conceptually what we talked about is having kind of this vetting board or this voting board concept. And they split the whole thing. Long story short, there was a very extensive amendment that's been in process. And once we have that back, we'll obviously share it with the committee. But the intent is to still just have the one board. And then within that board is to have basically certain members that are voting members of it. And once we have that back, we'll basically get that back to everyone. We have been in constant communication with Senator Edwards, Senator McKay, myself, Delegate Buckle, all met with Senator Edwards last week along with this board. I also spoke with Senator Edwards yesterday about this, so he is in constant communication about this. And one thing also with bill drafting, which was brought to my attention, and want to make sure it is clear on the record, we are not changing the name of this fund. Bill drafting, when they started putting this whole vetting and voting board thing together, we noticed in there that they talked about changing the name of it, and that is not the case here. So obviously, once we have all that worked out with bill drafting, we'll get back to you. But really, it's an administrative type bill within the fund itself. So we appreciate your consideration and respectfully ask for a favorable report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments? No, I think we're good. Senator Hester here. Senate Bill 782.
Madam Chair.
You have two witnesses?
I think so, yes. Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Senator Katie Fry Hester, representing District 9, Howard and Montgomery counties. Thank you for consideration of Senate Bill 782. As you know, our state has a long tradition of promoting sustainable materials. Starting in 2014, we established the Maryland Green Purchasing Committee. However, we still have a ways to go. And what we've been thinking about is with the waste that we have is that it's not really waste. It's simply a material that is out of place. And so what sustainable materials management really means is looking at all these resources and using them as effectively and efficiently as possible throughout their life cycle. One area that is ripe for state procurement in terms of recycled materials is compost, mulch, aggregate, and other ground covers. If you think about the amount of landscaping the state does, it is a fantastic choice. If we choose recycled products as opposed to products made from virgin materials, we simultaneously reduce the amount of waste in our landfills and also reduce greenhouse gas emissions. To this end, Senate Bill 782 directs a state unit responsible for public land maintenance to give a preference to products made from municipal solid food waste or yard waste, as well as a number of other recycled or organic materials, as long as they are competitively priced and of satisfactory quality. The bill defines comparably priced as not more than 10% above the cost of virgin materials, but also permits an additional 5% preference margin if the Maryland Green Purchasing Committee determines that amount to be appropriate. Furthermore, today you will hear from Maryland-based companies that these materials are being manufactured in the state of Maryland, and by shifting our purchasing power, we can work towards environmental goals while supporting our local economy. This modest bill is an excellent win-win opportunity for the environment and the economy. And for those reasons, I request a favorable report on Senate Bill 782.
Okay. Welcome.
Good afternoon, members of the committee, and thank you for your time. My name is Susanna Vaughn, and I'm testifying on behalf of Bioenergy DevCo in favor of this bill. Bioenergy DevCo proudly produces nutrient-rich soil amendment that is derived from recycled food waste. Our plant in Jessup, Maryland diverts 115,000 tons per year of food scraps to this recycling center. We believe that one of the most important things we can do to reduce our carbon footprint is to transition to use of recycled materials. Recycling conserves energy, reduces air and water pollution, reduces greenhouse gases, and conserves natural resources by reducing the mining of virgin materials. The life cycle assessment of our food waste recycling process has an estimated greenhouse gas reduction of nearly 30,000 metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalent. This is the carbon sequestration equivalent of planting 35,000 acres of forest. One of the most effective ways of getting innovative new approaches like this off the ground is through public investment, and transitioning to sustainable recycled materials is an important piece of responding rapidly to our climate crisis. The potential modest increase in materials cost is heavily outweighed by the escalating cost of climate change. In fact, the World Economic Forum estimates an increase of 56% in mitigation costs for each decade we fail to hit carbon reduction targets. Promoting the use of recycled materials is an important step towards working for a more sustainable future. And because of these reasons, I ask for a favorable passage of this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Miguel Lambert.
I have some sample boxes if okay, I would love to pass around. Good afternoon, Chairwoman and members of the Budget and Taxation Committee. For the consideration of Senate Bill 782. For the record, I'm Miguel Lambert representing Repurpose Aggregates. I'm testifying in support of SB 782 for state purchasing purposes of recycled materials and for the inclusion of aggregate materials. I want to thank Senator Hester for sponsoring this important legislation. During the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, we began construction of the nation's second ever CDE waste recycling wash plant. Located in Joppa, Maryland, Repurpose Aggregates is a state-of-the-art recycling focused. Located in Joppa, Maryland, Repurpose Aggregates is a state-of-the-art facility focusing on diverting demolition material from landfills and recycling it into valuable construction materials, sand, stone, and clay. In fact, 97% of the demolition or dredge materials that are delivered to our location are recycled and put back in use in future projects. We commissioned the plant last summer, and we are proud to report that it has diverted approximately 150,000 tons of demolition material from landfills in 2022. Initiatives such as ours, dedicated to sustainable materials, will reduce our dependence on our finite natural resources. Our state spends billions of dollars and purchases thousands of tons of products per year, particularly in the construction space. The spending power of our great state and the urgency of the environmental health cannot be overstated. State support is critical for the continued investment in recycled materials and the preservation of natural resources. Due to the current recession, businesses throughout our state are currently facing great economic hardship, from our trucker shortage to skyrocketing prices of fuel and raw materials for the construction industry. Legislative support for this burgeoning market of environmental friendly products will continue to open the doors for greater expansion, job creation, investment, and move us closer to a fully circular economy. This legislation will have major impact on growing the recycling market in Maryland, assisting with our climate mitigation goals, and ushering in a new generation of sustainable businesses. For these reasons, Repurpose Aggregates respectfully ask for a favorable report for Senate Bill 782.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions from the committee? Senator Alfred.
Thank you, Madam Chair. To the sponsor of the panelists, what's the market like for these? How many companies do we have in Maryland who are capable of utilizing this, or is it a burgeoning market? What's the need for this bill?
If it's okay, could I answer? There is a need for it because it is a starting market. Just to compare, and I'll speak more on the aggregate side, and Suzanne will speak on the food side. If you compare what's happening in the rest of the world, this is the second plant in the United States. There are over 250 plants like this in the rest of the world: Australia, UK, London. And because those countries have made those investments and they're far ahead of us in terms of repurposing. And what we're asking is for Maryland to be a leader in that, and to assist with support.
Thank you.
And I can speak briefly to the growth of the food waste recycling industry and the soil amendment that'll result from that. As the committee may be aware, Maryland recently passed a food waste recycling bill. And with that, there's a lot of new businesses moving into that market, along with a very strong existing composting industry. And we can only imagine that there's going to be a big influx of this type of product, and we hope that the state will find a place to incorporate it into their procurement projects.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Senator Heddleman.
I think this is really interesting. And I'm just curious, and if the sponsor maybe or anybody can answer this, but do we have other areas of state procurement where we're requiring recycling like this, or I know, I mean, the food waste composting, I know, but sort of other state agencies we're requiring. And I should say that I'm prefacing this by saying I think we should lead by example. So I'm just curious if there are other areas that you know of that we're requiring.
So I'd be happy to get back to you with a little bit, more detail, but off the top of my head, the Maryland Green Purchasing Committee is really about buying recycled office products.
Okay.
And so I mean, that's one area that we do this in. I think, this is narrowly tailored toward like ground covers. I think, the state highway has a whole lot of projects where this would be really helpful. We're starting, it was a smaller step than going like full force ahead, but I'd be happy to get back to you with more specific answers.
Yeah, no, I think it's a really interesting idea. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't see any more questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have Senator Zucker, Senate Bill 622. You have two witnesses.
Good afternoon, colleagues, distinguished members, Madam Chair, distinguished members of the Budget and Taxation Committee. For the record, Senator Craig Zucker here on Senate Bill 622. Colleagues, you might remember last year, this committee unanimously passed the End the Wait Act. It was to cut down on the waiver programs. Last year, through this committee, we put roughly $30 million into what's called the dedicated purpose account. And the intent of it was to open that up to the other waiver programs that were listed in the End the Wait Act. And because we ran out of time, it was good in a way where because we had just tied the dedicated purpose account to eliminating the wait for the autism waiver program. But the intent was always to make sure that these other waiver programs had access to the dedicated purpose account money. The only way we can change the access point, and the only way we can allow the other waiver programs to access the dedicated purpose account is through legislation. So that's what this bill does. It makes sure that the other waiver programs are already identified and the wait can access the dedicated purpose account. And this doesn't create any new mandates. This is just making sure that those programs that were supposed to be able to access this funding is able to do that. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions or turn it to my amazing panel. Laura, Matt, please.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I'm Laura Howell, here today on behalf of the Developmental Disabilities Coalition. We are 5 statewide organizations committed to improving opportunities for people with developmental disabilities. We obviously strongly support this bill and thank the bill sponsor for all of his work and championing of these issues. There are almost 4,000 people on the DDA waiting list who are largely in crisis categories. There are another 4,000 on the DDA future request list, which means they are expected to need services in 3 or more years, and 6,300 people on the autism waiver registry. So the need to help people get services is clear. But we also have an issue with provider capacity, and we are very appreciative of Senator Zucker for a sponsor amendment that would allow a portion of the funds to be used to help address this issue, as well as I believe was the intent last year. So we strongly support Senate Bill 622 with the sponsor amendments and urge favorable report. Thank you.
Good afternoon, members of the Budget and Taxation Committee. My name is Matt Rice. I am the Executive Director of People on the Go Maryland, Maryland's statewide self-advocacy organization for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities, or IDD. We are here in strong support of Senate Bill 622. Simply put, you know, we see this as the right thing to do for the intellectual and developmental disability community. And, you know, we see this as a necessary step towards helping ensure the future of the advocates who are unknown to DDA at the present time, and who will be at some point the future of the self-advocacy and disability rights movement within our state. There may be people on the waiting list who want to be your partners, who want to make a difference in state and local policy, and they should have the opportunity to create change, unlock opportunity, and improve their lives. And they will have that if this legislation becomes law. With that, I respectfully ask for a favorable report, and thank you for your time.
Madam Chair, I just want the record to reflect that there are a lot of people that had wanted to sign up to testify and they submitted written testimony, but their voices are still very important.
Thank you. And I think this last testimony kind of set the bar pretty high for everybody anyway. There are very few people that come here and testify and don't have to read what they're saying. And you've done a great job just talking away there. You did a great job. I don't see any questions.
It's my privilege, Madam Chair, and thank you.
Well, we are happy to have you here. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. We have again, Senator Zucker, Senate Bill 866.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. For the record, Senator Craig Zucker here in support with amendments of Senate Bill 866. And I have a great panel here. And Madam Chair, this is sort of a twofer. You all may remember that a couple of weeks ago, you all co-sponsored legislation that hopefully will create a new Maryland Heroes license plate. With that in mind, the Chesapeake Bay Trust and MAIF are crucial to the future of our state in terms of providing grants and education programs. And they rely heavily on funding from their license plate. That's basically, generally speaking, that's how they get funded, is through either the purchase of these special plates or the renewal of them. And I believe that it's in the best interest of the General Assembly to make sure that they have funding in perpetuity, to make sure that even if there's an issue with license plates, the sale of license plates decreasing, that their wonderful, amazing work that they do every day to contribute to the betterment of Maryland is protected. And that they have longevity as far as their programs exist. So the legislation in front of you, as amended, would and working with them and the administration, it sounds like we're all rowing in the same direction to make sure that there's funding in perpetuity. That if there's a decrease in license plate sales, that it would be made up by general fund dollars. I looked at the fiscal note, and I think the fiscal note is very modest and doable. And I think the benefits to making sure that they're funded in perpetuity is invaluable for these organizations. And I believe will allow them further flexibility in making sure they're administering the grants, continuing to hire wonderful staff without overly worrying about what's going to happen with their license plate revenue. So I would strongly encourage a favorable report on this. I certainly appreciate all the co-sponsors and their assistance on this. And I want to just say I appreciate MAIF and the Chesapeake Bay Trust Fund on all their cooperation.
Thank you, Senator. Okay, we have Jana Davis, Suzanne Richards, Zach Kelleher, and Rachel Jones. 2 minutes, please.
Good afternoon, Madam Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Suzanne Richards. I'm the Executive Director of the Maryland Agricultural Education Foundation. Senate Bill 866, with the amendments offered, would benchmark a minimum revenue level using general fund appropriations for both MAIF and the Chesapeake Bay Trust. It's important to note that if there is no loss in revenue, no appropriations would be required. In addition to the AgTag license plate revenues, MAIF is supported by private gifts, grants, and program fees. Still, the AgTag revenues make up about half of MAIF's budget, consistently funding our payroll. MAIF performs roles and responsibilities which had traditionally been part of MSDE's Office of Agriculture Education, including professional development for agriculture teachers, management of the Maryland FFA, and day-to-day duties within the Environment, Agriculture, and Natural Resources cluster. Upcoming changes to Maryland's educational system as a result of the Blueprint for Maryland's Future will greatly impact agricultural education. This agricultural education pathway provides an important pipeline for individuals to prepare for careers in Maryland's largest commercial industry, which is responsible for 350,000 jobs and more than $8.25 billion to Maryland's economy annually, which generates more than $755 million in state and local taxes. In closing, we urge you to find Senate Bill 866 favorable with amendment.
Thank you. Janet Davis?
Thank you so much, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Really appreciate your time today. I'm Jana Davis, the president of the Chesapeake Bay Trust, and just a little bit of background on the Chesapeake Bay Trust, since some may not know us. We are a grant maker. You all created us in 1985 as to engage local communities on the ground through grants. We feel that if folks lead and own their own projects, they will be more sustained well into the future. So we make grants with the Bay Plate and the tax checkoff that you all created. We always say the monies go through the trust, not to the trust, and we use those dollars to leverage about 15 to 20 million additional dollars that can go out to community groups on the ground through grants. We're known to be very efficient. 90 cents of every dollar that comes in goes out the door to grantees through programs, which is pretty rare for a nonprofit, and demand for grant funds greatly exceeds the available resources. I won't go into the license plate story too much because Senator Zucker did a great job explaining, but bottom line is it's a pie issue. There's only so many vehicles in Maryland that are registered, and so the more license plates you have, the smaller piece of pie each one is hypothesized to have moving forward. So this bill would keep that revenue whole and benchmark with the amendment. It would benchmark it to current levels for funding that goes through the Chesapeake Bay Trust and MAIF. You have written testimony in the file, a sign-on letter from a number of members of the environmental ag. Trust makes a lot of non-environmental grants, so a number of those folks are signed on to that letter as well as a written testimony from Majette Parker, who was a past chair of the trust and instrumental in creating our diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice initiative. So thank you very much for your time. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Good job. Zach Kelleher.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I'm Zach Kelleher. I'm your Sassafras Riverkeeper with Shore Rivers. Shore Rivers is an environmental nonprofit located on Maryland's Eastern Shore. We're dedicated to protecting and restoring the waterways of the Eastern Shore through science-based advocacy, restoration, and education. You might be wondering what a riverkeeper is doing over here with a suit and tie on instead of out on a boat somewhere. But that's because of how important this bill is and how important this revenue is to the work that we do. Thanks to the Bay Plate, since 2017, Shore Rivers has received more than 53 grants from the Chesapeake Bay Trust, totaling over $2.7 million. And that accounts for about a quarter of the grant funding we receive from state and federal sources. If this funding stream were to be decreased, it would have a major detrimental impact on the work that we do, and it would disproportionately impact the Eastern Shore, where funding sources are already pretty limited. We've been able to use this grant funding from the Chesapeake Bay Trust to install groundbreaking wetlands restoration technology, engage thousands of students on meaningful watershed environmental education experiences, plant hundreds of trees, engage hundreds of thousands of people on critical environmental topics ranging from harmful algal blooms to climate change, and support community events that showcase our water monitoring programs, as well as all of the other outreach programs that we do. These grants, combined with the federal funding we received by leveraging these grants, have enabled Shore Rivers to install more than 260 restoration projects across our territory. And annually, these projects are preventing more than 160,000 pounds of nitrogen, 17,000 pounds of phosphorus, and 5,500 tons of sediment from entering our local waterways. For reference, by using this funding, our expertise, we can reduce nitrogen at about $121 per pound, compared to about $5,000 per pound that it costs for urban stormwater retrofits. So we support this bill with the amendment so that we can have this steady stream of funding. And for these reasons and the health of our waterways, I urge the committee for a favorable report with the proposed amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Rachel Jones.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I'm Rachel Jones, Director of Government Relations for the Maryland Department of Agriculture. I'm pleased to be here on behalf of Secretary Addix to support Senate Bill 866. We thank Senator Zucker and the co-sponsors for recognizing this crucial gap and making an effort to fill it. As it's already been said by the Chesapeake Bay Trust and MAIF, you understand that they were established without a designated general funding appropriation in the state budget. SB 866, if passed with amendments, ensures that the revenues managed by the trust and MAIF remain stable as additional commemorative vehicle license plates become available to vehicle owners in Maryland. The important issues that these organizations have been supported by private revenues generated by the commemorative vehicle license plates, as already been said. The Chesapeake Bay Trust utilizes their funding to improve the Chesapeake Bay watersheds, and MAIF utilizes theirs to increase agricultural literacy and education. These are two necessary causes for the sustainment and preservation of our environment and a thriving agricultural industry here in Maryland. The addition of any commemorative tag may cause those revenues to drop. So SB 866 with the amendment to establish a revenue calculation to benchmark the annual revenue managed by the trust and MAIF to the FY17 through FY22 levels would keep these revenues stable for years to come. The Maryland Department of Agriculture supports these SB 866 with these amendments, and thanks you for your consideration of a favorable report.
Thank you very much. Senator Jennings.
Craig, I should ask this question earlier. So when I was in the House, I remember there were a couple attempts to try to do this for other plates with regards to the hero, not these. I just have a quick question. Of these two plates, which I consider to be fundraising plates, I know there's hundreds of others where you can get it, where it's not the whole plate, it's just like a little 4x4 area that has your organization. Are those fundraising also? Does that group get money out of that if you use that?
You're talking about like the smaller logo plates?
Yes,
No.
like 4-H.
I don't think, I think they
That's
they
just
have to
showing
sign a
your,
petition or something, and then depending on how many signatures, they can get a special plate, but I
and
think
it's
it's
just
something.
showing, I guess, membership to whatever that group is.
Yeah, but
and
this
support for
is what makes these the plates so invaluable for these organizations is it really becomes a funding
Well,
source.
Yeah, these are fundraising plates. Okay. I was
And not
curious about
only
the
just
other one.
fundraising, but it's also grant producing, it's not only, it's an opportunity also for them to utilize the funding, and it doesn't belong to them, it belongs to the people in Maryland. So they're basically a filter, and then it goes out to helping the community.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you all very much. All right, next on our list is Senate Bill 841, Senator Kramer.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Ben Kramer here introducing Senate Bill 841. Colleagues, this will not take up a whole lot of the committee's time. Senate Bill 841 is simply one of many ideas seeking to help address the proliferation of hate in general, anti-Semitism more specifically, with the goal of education being the foundation by which we address ignorance, which is the basis of much of the hate that we see surrounding us. So the bill would simply provide that annually the governor provide $500,000 in the budget to give our children the firsthand opportunity to visit very important museums like the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum, the National Museum of African American History and Culture, the Jewish Museum of Maryland, and the Reginald F. Lewis Museum of Maryland, African American History and Culture. Colleagues, that's the extent of the bill. And with that, thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Kramer. Okay, we have Deborah Miller and Abigail Snyder.
Hello, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I'm Deborah Miller, the Director of Maryland Government and Community Relations for the JCRC of Greater Washington. We're an umbrella group that represents over 100 Jewish agencies, synagogues, and schools in the region. And for the record, I'm here today in support of Senate Bill 841. Funding for school field trips to our stellar Holocaust and African American museums in the state and in the greater area is critical to the work that we do with the JCRC. Now more than ever, we are working around the clock, it seems, to tackle the rise in anti-Semitism and also to educate our students about the Holocaust and the consequences of intolerance. Research shows that experiential learning, these field trips to museums enhances students' understanding of material that they learn in the classroom and often provides an opportunity to question their assumptions and also to have some deeper reflection about what they're seeing in the museum. Lack of knowledge about the Holocaust is actually astounding. A study by the Claims Conference claimed that 66% of Americans between the ages of 18 and 39 did not know that 6 million Jews were murdered in the Holocaust. And a recent ADL survey showed that 85% of Americans believe in at least one anti-Jewish trope. So today in Montgomery County, seems that a week doesn't go by where there's not some sort of anti-Semitic incident at an elementary school, a middle school, or a high school. Although Jews make up only 10% of the county's population, they are the target of 85% of all religious-based hate crimes. So the JCRC understands that a museum trip is not going to end anti-Semitism or racism, but knowledge is a powerful tool that educators can use to build empathy and understanding and teach about the Holocaust. For these reasons, we ask for a favorable report. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. For the record, Abby Snyder, Director of Government Relations for the Baltimore Jewish Council, which represents the Associated Jewish Federation of Baltimore and its agencies, here today in support of SB 841. Just a few statistics for you. According to Maryland State Police's 2021 hate bias report, the Black community ranked first and the Jewish community ranked second amongst populations that face the most hate crimes in our state. In a 2020 survey, which Deb also mentioned from the Claims Conference, Maryland itself was ranked among 9 other states, including Georgia, Louisiana, Florida, Mississippi, and Arkansas, for having the lowest Holocaust knowledge scores. We don't usually get grouped with those states, and it's not something I think we'd all like to be super proud of. Additionally, 55% of Marylanders in that Gen Z and millennial range could not name a singular concentration camp. We all know one of the best ways to prevent history from repeating itself is through education. By providing grants to local jurisdictions that will help subsidize field trip costs, you all will be taking a step towards providing students with an opportunity to learn about other cultures, giving hands-on experiences that will more likely resonate with students, and incentivizing schools to take advantage of these opportunities to learn outside of the classroom. And for these reasons, we urge a favorable report on SB 841.
Thank you very much. It'd be nice if we could just all respect each other for where we are.
Yeah, wouldn't
We
it?
wouldn't even have to have this conversation. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks, committee.
We do have one virtual person. I think there's actually a couple more here, right?
Hello.
We have somebody?
Hello.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, sir.
Oh, all right. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I didn't know when transition between YouTube and Zoom, there's a pause there. I am against this bill that Libby was talking about. Other states, we have a 2% reading level. Baltimore, where I live, I don't think that's really the issue, or gets to the issue. My issues have to do with the fact that this is basically a mandate. This is a forced curricula toward the county superintendent, superseding them. Also find coercion, that this is a particularly funded position. It looks like it's going to be an ongoing one and that it's going to be mandatory. I'm going to send you all a list of other field trips that the school's mom suggested. Response put here. I find it concerning that we have $500,000 and we don't have educated probably interest. I'll just put it that way. I don't know anything beyond. And third, remember that we're picking these issues to save people, and going to Fort McHenry where I live, or Patuxent down in St. Mary's, I think that's equally viable. Thank you for your time, committee. I'm available for
Thank you.
questions.
That ends that. Okay, next on our list here, Senator McCray, 646.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Would I be able to bring up the panel?
Yes, go right ahead.
Thank you. Madam Chair, members of the committee, for the record, Corey McCray, and I'm here to present Senate Bill 48646. Madam Chair, I come to you in reference to our public charter schools, in reference to the maintenance of how we address our public charter schools. I like to first recognize that there are 48 public charter schools across the state of Maryland. I have several of them within my district and frequent them a good bit. When we think about our public charter schools, it's important to recognize that throughout those 48 schools, there are 24,000 students, young scholars that we're talking about when we're talking about this. This is 20% of our school system across the state of Maryland. Is important to recognize when we talk about this. And one of the things that I think about when I visit city neighbors, Lily Mae Carroll, Brims Lane, whoever it is that I'm visiting, I do think about what does the facilities and the maintenance of those facilities look like. And when I think about those maintenance and facilities, this isn't a conversation that starts here today, but this was a conversation that preceded us to some degree. Last year, there was actually a study that was conducted by our IAC, our interagency on school construction, to look at our facilities within our public charter schools and to see what is the dollar amount that helps address the costs from a cost measure standpoint of the facilities, the rent, the utilities, and things of that nature. Madam Chair, that's why I'm here with Senate Bill 646. And thinking about that 2,000 that was recommended, 16.5% of that budget within per student that's put forward within our dollar amount for our young scholars. I have a number of subject experts, but the most important, the most inspiring that I look forward to hearing from is our students. But we also have some of our administrators, and we also have, from a technical question standpoint, Ms. Harding has joined us from that standpoint. But Madam Chair, I hope that my colleagues will all see the opportunities that present before us. I like to say that I do not believe that this is an either or. I think that we can do both. I think that they are public. I know that they are public, and I think that we should move in that direction to make sure that we address the issues within the facilities.
Good afternoon, members of the Senate Budget and Taxation Committee. My name is Jason Green, and I'm the Executive Director for New Song Community Learning Center, which is the charter operator for a public charter school called New Song Academy, located in Baltimore City, Legislative District 40. I'm here asking for your favorable support of Senate Bill 646, which helps satisfy charter school funding. We see a deficit in our budget all the time when it comes to funding of charter school facilities. We own our building, but we have to maintain them. We have to deal with the maintenance, the upkeep, and everything going on there that we don't get support from the district. This program would definitely support us and be able to afford us the opportunity to provide funding that we can put back into our students in their education and making it exceptional. I'm here on behalf of our students, our families, staff, and community, alongside Senator McCray here, so that we can get this bill passed and it can help funding with charter schools. Thank you for your time.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee, and thank you for your time. I'm Maya Holloman, a 12th grade student at Chesapeake Science Point Public Charter School in Anne Arundel County. This is my 7th and final year at CSP, and I'm currently serving as the student body president. On behalf of my student population, I'd just like to share a few reasons why increased funding would be so beneficial to our school community. This year, I've had the privilege of interning with the Department of Defense in a work-study program. As a result, I needed to make changes in my class schedule in order to accommodate my work schedule. One of these was having to take an asynchronous class at Anne Arundel Community College because with only one teacher to teach AP Calculus BC, I couldn't fit the limited course offerings into my schedule. Because of this, I greatly struggled with the course throughout the semester due to the lack of in-person instruction, which hindered my ability to understand some material. With many teachers leaving to go to schools that can pay them more or other career fields, we're also not given the opportunity to connect with teachers very often as so many of them leave. This has impacted many of my peers as we navigate the college admissions process, since there's a small amount of teachers who we can get letters of recommendation from. As a result, many teachers have been overwhelmed by requests from dozens of students, impacting their ability to provide personalized feedback. Currently, our school spends anywhere between 15 to 20% on our building expenses alone. If Senate Bill 646 were to be passed, that 15 to 20% could go towards enhancing our experiences as students and creating positive and lasting relationships with our teachers. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Vice Chair Rosa Pepp, and members of the Budget and Taxation Committee. My name is David Miller, and I serve as the Regional Facilities Director for Imagine Schools Mid-Atlantic Region. Imagine Schools operates 4 public charter schools in Prince George's County that serve over 1,600 scholars in kindergarten through 8th grades. As Regional Facilities Director, I manage 4 campuses comprising 177,500 square feet across 9 buildings. I'm submitting this testimony in support of Senate Bill 646, providing the establishment of a charter school facility fund. Charter schools play a crucial role in providing quality education options for students in Maryland. Our schools have unique needs and face significant challenges when it comes to securing and maintaining suitable facilities. Each day, my team and I are forced to make decisions based on a limited amount of funds to support the management and maintenance of our school facilities. Our school buildings range in age from 69 to 11 years old. We know that each decision, from fixing a leaky roof to repainting a drab classroom, impacts funds that could be spent on learning, things like curriculum, books for classroom libraries, technology acquisition. And some issues aren't decisions. HVAC unit repairs are urgent. Life safety issues have to be addressed immediately. Across the country, facilities issues, inadequate facilities, and their impact on charter schools' budgets are one of the primary causes for charter school closings. That's why there is a critical need for a dedicated charter schools facility fund in Maryland. This fund would prevent public charter schools from having to dip into their per pupil allotment funding stream from their authorizers to address the majority of facilities expenses. This is a simple question of equity. Currently, why does a charter school student in Maryland not have access to the same level of facilities funding support as their friend at the neighboring traditional public school? When that scholar's parents enroll them in a charter school, are they not entitled to the same full faith and credit of the state of Maryland their peers have access to in facilities that are renovated or newly constructed? Overall, a dedicated charter school facilities fund in Maryland is essential to ensure charter schools have equal access to resources and support as traditional public schools. I respectfully urge this committee to return a favorable report on Senate Bill 646. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vice Chairman, and members of the Budget and Taxation Committee. My name is Jane Lindenfelser. I'm the Executive Director of Patterson Park Public Charter School Incorporated, which operates both Patterson Park Public Charter School and Clay Hill Public Charter School. I'm here today to ask for your support for Senate Bill 646. My colleagues have already spoken to the need for equity and facilities funding for charter school students who are public school students. And so I want to tell you the story of Clay Hill Public Charter School. We decided to open Clay Hill in Southeast Baltimore because we identified a significant need. There was an 1,800 academic seat deficit in the Southeast, a growing population of Latino Hispanic students, and there was not a solution to meet that demand. So we opened up a new school in a building that was left vacant when Our Lady of Fatima Catholic School closed in 2010. Our only options to locate a school in that area where the facility that we occupied or another closed facility that was closed in 2008 and was going to require upwards of $20 million in renovation. And so we picked the cheapest of those two options. Despite that, it's still incredibly expensive. Renovations are going to cost about $13 million over a span of 3 phases. So it's significant. In order to do that, we do plan to fundraise and to finance that construction. But if this bill were to pass, the support through this bill would allow us to save significantly on the debt service, upwards of $3 million over the term of that loan. That's money that can be spent on our students and in the classroom instead of on the building. We service a population of students and families who are in high need. We are the 4th largest ESOL site in the district right now. And at the beginning of this school year, the 2nd year returning from COVID, 74% of our students in 2nd through 4th grade were in urgent need of reading intervention. We know that our program is working because at our mid-year point of testing, 96% of students were on track to make 1.5 years of growth. So imagine what we could do if those dollars that were spent on our building were instead spent in the classroom and spent on our students' intervention. So I ask for your favorable support for this bill.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Marta Harding. I'm here on behalf of the Maryland Alliance of Public Charter Schools in support of this bill. We want to express our appreciation to Senator McCray for introducing it. I just want to cover a couple of technical, detail points in the bill to make sure that it is clear. First of all, I think the short title is a misnomer. This bill is not about school construction. It's not about capital projects. It is about the day-to-day expenses of that charter schools incur in order to provide a functional physical space for students to learn in. Rent, O&M like utilities, routine repairs, maintenance, et cetera, property insurance. If the charter school owns its building, it would include debt service. I will note, however, that the bill includes the standard language that is included for nonprofit capital projects in the state, that if the charter school were to sell the building, that notice would have to be given to the state and the Board of Public Works could determine whether the money needed to be repaid or not. It is set up as a reimbursement framework. This is after the end of the school year, the charter school needs to submit documentation of all of its actual eligible expenses as defined in the bill to the IAC, which will review the documentation to ensure that the expenses are in fact eligible and that the documentation is proper. Of course, as Senator McCray and others have indicated, there is a cap in the bill of $2,000 per pupil. That is based on the IAC study, which determined that was the average amount being spent today by public charter schools. I'll note that there's one other protection in the bill I just want to highlight. If a charter school's charter is surrendered or is revoked or non-renewed or ends for any reason, the charter school would not be eligible, even in retrospect, for eligible expenses. At that point, the entitlement to reimbursement would end. Lastly, I just want to point out that Maryland lags behind other states. 33 other states provide support for facilities expenses to schools. And DC in particular provides a $3,200 per pupil just allotment, not based on reimbursement, just an allotment of $3,200. So this is not an unusual step. We think it's appropriate and we ask for a favorable report. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Hedelman.
Chair, just a quick question for anybody. What do you do now? I mean, beyond you fundraise and you finance, you self-finance, is that it? Are those the only resources available to you?
Yeah, those are the two main things. And then we don't invest in program when we do those things. We operate both schools. When funding has gotten tighter, we aren't able to change any of those building expenses, right? So we have to cut in other places.
So the local school system does not provide any capital support for you. Okay, thank you.
I think we have one more person virtually.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Go ahead, sir.
Okay. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Sage Magnus Hill. I use they, them pronouns, and I ask for your support of Bill 646. I serve as the board president of Watershed Public Charter School, and I'm the parent of 2 first graders. We chose Watershed, the only charter school in Baltimore County, because it's a diverse and engaged environment that emphasizes outdoor learning and arts integration. Class sizes are intentionally small and students spend time outside every day in rain, sun, or snow. Watershed also focuses on project-based learning, which encourages practical applications of subject matter across disciplines. Maryland charter schools are public schools, so there's no cost of attendance for families. Our students score above average for BCPS on MCAP. We're a Maryland Green School and a current Maryland nominee for U.S. Green Ribbon Schools. Despite all Watershed successes, we have faced some real challenges with our physical space and the maintenance of our facilities. Most charter school buildings are older buildings that are leased from landlords. We rent our building for $18,000 a month from the Archdiocese of Baltimore, and our operating budget additionally covers utilities and facility maintenance. Our traditional counterparts are not responsible for these costs, as the school district owns and maintains those facilities. I also want to highlight that to date, Watershed is the only charter school in the state that received 0 ESSER dollars as a per pupil and 0 facilities dollars from ESSER 3 for COVID safety improvements. BCPS centralized this crucial funding and disseminated it to select schools in an opaque decision-making process. Watershed paid for required COVID facility improvements and cleaning staff out of our operating budget and educational funds. This deficit in funding led to significant facility issues that have disrupted the instructional time our teachers and students need. We want to be good stewards of our educational funding. Our PPA blueprint dollars should be spent in the classroom, not on the classroom. So this bill would ensure that all Maryland public school students have secure physical spaces that enhance learning. Imagine how much more our school communities would thrive if we had the same well-maintained facilities as other Maryland public schools. I strongly urge you to support Bill 646 because all public school students deserve equitable access to a healthy and safe learning environment. Thank you for providing me the opportunity to share Watershed's story with you today.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else here that wants to testify on this bill? If you do, come on forward.
Madam Chair, is this on?
It's on.
Madam Chair and members of the committee, my name is Savona Rizzo and I'm an 8th grader at Frederick Classical Charter School. I'm here with friends from charter schools in Frederick County. We represent over 24,000 public charter school students across the state who need this bill passed. It's been 20 years that Maryland charter school students have gone without any public funding to pay for our school buildings. I have learned that per pupil allocation provides operational funding which is commensurate with our peers. Unfortunately, charter schools do not get to spend all of this money on student learning. We have to pay rent. My school's building costs $730,000 every year, or about 17% of our PPA, and will increase due to inflation. Passing this bill would mean we can immediately hire the teachers we need, as well as fix or improve our buildings. In the future, we can have real school buildings with outdoor green spaces, maybe with nice cafeterias and regular gyms and science labs and working heating and AC. In my written testimony, I included pictures of our outdoor play areas. They're just parking lots. Please understand that charter school funding does not take anything away from other public school students, and this bill does not impact them. We are public school students too, but we do not receive a fair and equitable level of public funding compared to our peers in traditional public schools. We are each being given on average $2,000 less every single year just because we choose to attend a different kind of public school. This bill will cost about $48 million per year, which is not much compared to the overall education spending in Maryland, but it would make a huge difference for 50 schools across the whole state. Please support this bill and make sure that it is mandatory to include in the budget every year. Public charter school students deserve your support. Thank you for your time, and we are happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you so much. I think you're the best testifier we've had yet today. You have another one? Go ahead. No? Okay. All right. Any questions for this panel? I think we're good. Thank you. Great job.
Thank you.
You always notice when kids come down to testify, Everybody sits up to listen, and so it's very effective to have you come down here. Okay, that does it for that bill. Senator McCray, you've got another one.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And if I can have my panel come up.
Senate Bill 856.
And Madam Chair, just thank you for the committee's indulgence. I usually don't have this many testifying, but these are important subject matters, so thank you.
It's a good thing we love you, Senator.
For the record, my name is Corey McCray. I'm here in reference to Senate Bill 856. Senate Bill 856 started with just an idea, a concept that then turned into a legislative proposal. I got a phone call from my friend, Mike Rosenbaum, who throughout the conversation just challenged me to dream big. And when he talked about dreaming big, he talked about some of the challenges that we have within Baltimore City. But he also said challenges can sometimes equal out to opportunities. And when he talked about that, I looked at the challenges that we were having, and the conversation was about the challenges from an infrastructure standpoint. Whether you're talking about our roads, our bridges, our water infrastructure, our broadband, he continued to say think big within that conversation. And then started to think about what does the human capital standpoint, when you have these challenges from an infrastructure standpoint, there are opportunities from a human capital standpoint, and not just from a Baltimore City standpoint. Think about the Baltimore region, think about the state of Maryland. What does the human capital look like, and what does those opportunities look like when you merge these two together? When you merge these two together, you get Senate Bill 856, Madam Chair, and we think about the Stadium Authority, and the Stadium Authority is where we've always went to when we have big ideas. We went to the Stadium Authority from our stadiums. We went to the Stadium Authority when we wanted to do 21st century schools, when we wanted to do projects on the Western Maryland, whether it's the Eastern Shore. We've always visited our Stadium Authority from that standpoint. The concept is that we will look for our local, state, and federal partners to be able to leverage dollars from a bonding standpoint to deal with the infrastructure issues that we have within our great city of Baltimore. But also recognizing, and on this stage today, I have with me some apprentices. What does the human capital piece look like? Who's going to be working on these projects? What does that look like when you have that finished product? Madam Chair, I'll stop the talking. I think that we'll move towards the apprentices so that folks, I wish that Roosevelt was here. He loves apprentices. But the apprentices to kind of highlight what does their day look like in a 2-minute fashion. But then to close and get the job done, we do have Mike Rosenbaum to kind of come through from that standpoint. So Madam Chair, thank you. I hope that you all will think and consider supporting Senate Bill 856, and I'll move it over to the apprentices.
First and foremost, thank you for your time. It's an honor to be here, the entire committee. My name is Thomas Mullen. I'm a 5th-year apprentice in Local 24's apprenticeship program. I'm here speaking on Senate Bill 856. I apologize. It's my first time testifying. I'm a little nervous. Personally, I come from a low middle class. Going into construction was a big change in my life through what I've been doing. Because of this job, I've achieved a house, a wife, a child. My life has massively expanded. They also offer retirement, so I have a future ahead of me now. Instead of just having a job, it's more of a career. The future of our state and the expansion of our state and our country relies on construction and relies on experienced apprentices and experienced journeymen. And without experienced apprentices, we won't progress, we won't expand, we won't grow. So I think that's kind of the backbone of this country. Our apprenticeship right now has over 350 apprentices right now, and when they finish our apprenticeship, they will have achieved over 10,000 hours of experience, which is pretty incredible. That's about all I have to say. Thank you for your time.
Great job.
Good afternoon. My name is Christian Gutierrez. Thank you, Madam Chair and committee, for having me here. I'm a fourth-year apprentice at a local 24. I'm come from an immigrant family, didn't really have much resources in my college. So when I did end up going, I was working a full-time job to pay for my college, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do. My neighbor ended up being part of the local 24, told me to go apply. I went. It seemed like a nice choice because I wasn't really paying much money. They were pretty much paying me to learn, which is what I'm doing now. And it's a great opportunity. I mean, I had great benefits, and can't really say much about it, but I mean, other than it was how great opportunity it was for me. And that's pretty much all I had to say.
It's enough to say, good job.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, members of the committee. My name's Mike Rosenbaum, and I don't know how to follow that. But I'm an entrepreneur, and I've started a couple of companies that are based in Baltimore City, and my first company enables pathways into tech jobs through apprenticeships. And the average income in someone's last job before being identified by that company is $24,000 a year. And the average income 5 years later is $98,000 a year. So I think we just heard about what that means in terms of the ability to raise a family, the ability to buy a house, and the ability to live a life with dignity. Today in Baltimore City, easily measurable, we have $4 billion in deferred maintenance in roads, bridges, water lines, and broadband. And at the same time, we have tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people who would be exceptional at working on this work if given the opportunity. And so the beauty of this bill is that it pays for itself. It pays for itself through increased tax revenue, and it pays for itself through decreased spending on direct supports. And so I won't say much more other than this is a bill which allows us to think big and enable us to insert hope in Baltimore City and the Baltimore area, and enables us to pay for it simply through increased incomes, through folks working on the projects that enable Baltimore City and the region to be better. Thank you.
Okay, any questions? I think we're good. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, do we know who's doing the next bills? Do we have anybody here from the department to do these bills? Comptroller, maybe. Commerce, you're elected. Senate Bill 721. Welcome.
All right.
Good afternoon, Senator King and committee members. For the record, I am Kevin Anderson, Secretary of the Maryland Department of Commerce. I'm here to testify in favor of Senate Bill 721, which extends the expiration date for the Maryland Employer Security Clearance Cost Tax Credit Program from January 1st, 2022 to January 1st, 2028. We've submitted written testimony, so I'll be brief. I'm also joined today by Andy Fish, Senior Director of Finance Programs at Commerce, and we will be happy to answer any questions you might have about the program or this legislation. The program has three components. First, it offers a credit for administrative expenses incurred by a business as they obtain and maintain federal security clearance for their employees. Second, it offers a credit for some of the construction and renovation costs of a sensitive compartmented information facility or SCIF. Finally, it offers a credit for the first-year leasing costs for certain small businesses doing security-based contract work. All three of these components help lower the cost of doing business for small and early-stage businesses doing business with the federal government. And as we all know, we have a strong and vitally important federal and military presence in Maryland, with agencies and facilities including the NSA, the FDA, NIST, the Aberdeen Proving Ground, Fort Meade, Pax River Naval Air Station, and so many others. Our robust industry of defense contractors who work with our federal and military partners depends on having clearance to do sensitive work and review classified information. And this has been a very popular program. In its inaugural year, tax year 2013, 39 businesses were certified. The number of companies applying for the credits has increased to 86 applicants for tax year 2021, and the program has been oversubscribed for the 2 million available under the statute. Governor Moore has made increasing Maryland's competitiveness the core of his economic agenda. This program helps make sure that our defense industry, particularly our small businesses and startups, can compete for these vital federal contracts. This is a unique program which gives Maryland a strategic advantage against other states and shows our commitment to our innovative companies. For these reasons, the Department of Commerce believes this is a valuable program and one worth extending. We respectfully request a favorable report on Senate Bill 721. Thank you so much.
Who's next?
Good.
Thank you, Madam Chair and committee. I am Tim Gorski, the CEO and founder of Amyan, a Maryland defense contractor, and I support Bill 721. Amyan has utilized this bill, Security Clearance Administrative Expense Tax Credit. The credit has financially incentivized the company to dedicate labor to properly administer security clearances. Security clearances administration is a unique and additional burden for founders to juggle in the defense sector. Often founders work 40 hours a week with a customer, then do business growth and administrative activities afterwards. This credit incentivizes founders to invest in overhead staff or consultants to administer security clearances. The positive effects to the state of Maryland resulting from the credit include these 4 things, in my opinion. So number 1, hiring overhead staff or security consultants generates new Maryland's tax income. Number 2, dedicating administrative resources to clear new individuals allows new federally funded defense jobs to be created, generating new income. Number 3, in my experience, sometimes a candidate will get an offer between the defense sector in Virginia and Maryland, and whoever gets the clearance through first gets the candidate. If Maryland wins, Maryland's going to get that income. And then number 4, dedicating manpower to administer a security clearance promotes the retention of security clearances, retaining income in the state of Maryland. So in summary, I believe Senate Bill 721 not only helps the defense sector businesses in Maryland, but also indirectly generates income taxes to Maryland. Thank you.
Did you want to testify?
I'm here if any questions for the secretary.
Okay, is there anybody else that wants to testify on this bill? Okay, I don't see any questions. You're good to go. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, Senate Bill 722. Michael Higgs is here. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Senator King. Director Higgs is currently below us, stuck in JPR. So good afternoon, Senator King and the rest of the members of the Budget and Taxation Committee. My name is Jonathan Glazer, and I'm the Legislative Director for the State Department of Assessments and Taxation. SDOT strongly supports Senate Bill 722. This departmental legislative proposal would permit the department to retain talent regardless of the age of the employee. The department views this legislation as paramount to its mission of retaining a diverse field of employees. The department believes that its employees should not be terminated because of their age, and we should take full advantage of the wisdom of our senior employees who desire to serve their fellow citizens. For these reasons, SDOT strongly urges a favorable vote of Senate Bill 722. Thank you.
Are there any witnesses on this bill? Don't see any signed up. No questions? You're good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we have Director Michael Higgs again. Jonathan, if you can do Senate Bill 723.
That would be great. Thank you. It's funny how the bills always happen at the exact same time. Good afternoon again, Senator King and members of the Budget and Taxation Committee. For the record, my name is Jonathan Glazer, and I'm the Legislative Director of the State Department of Assessments and Taxation. SDOT strongly supports Senate Bill 723. This departmental legislative proposal would remove the $1 per page fee for certain documents when they are delivered electronically from the department. Since the spring of 2020, approximately 90% of all new business filings and 80% of all business filings are submitted online through SSTAT's Maryland Business Express online filing systems. Many of these business filings are submitted online with a request for a certified copy of the filing. Once the business filing is approved for legal sufficiency by SSTAT staff, and it is included in a business filings registry, a PDF of a certified copy of the approved filing is automatically emailed back to the filer. However, statute as currently written still requires that SSTAT collect $1 per page for copies of business filings, even when the copies are returned in this digital format. The $1 per page fee is calculated by counting the number of pages in the PDF. The assumed original intent of the $1 per page fee was a way to capture the costs associated with copying, printing, and returning a physical copy of the document. Senate Bill 723 removes this fee from the online processed copy requests to align with the fact that fewer resources are being expended by SSTAT to generate a certified copy of these documents when the request is submitted online. For these reasons, SSTAT urges a favorable vote on Senate 2-3. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see any questions.
Awesome.
Good
Thank
job.
you.
Thank you. Okay, we are waiting for Senator Young. Here she comes. You're just in time. Senate Bill 576. You've got some witnesses with you.
I do. I have a panel,
Okay,
Madam Chair.
come on up if they'd like.
I think the others will be ready. Are they here? Yeah. They're in the hall. Okay. Would you like me to start while the others come in? Okay. This bill is, let me see the number again. I think you said SB 576, called combined reporting. I would prefer to rename it tax equity. And we'll talk about that. You've heard this bill before, probably several times if you're a veteran of this committee, but I will share with you again a definition of what combined reporting is. It requires the business's affiliates to determine their total income as they were one group and allocate it to each taxing state. So this is a tool that would be used, or an accounting principle that would be utilized by large corporations that have presence in multiple states. It cannot include transactions among themselves. In other words, shifting back and forth between states for tax purposes. The taxes do depend on the group's activity level in each taxing state, and it's calculated according to a statutory formula. Why is this coming up? Again, for a variety of reasons. Certainly for funding. This is a lost opportunity. When corporations, large corporations, are not paying taxes in our state, it is a major loss of revenue for us, particularly at a time when we need funding for the blueprint, for our crumbling infrastructure, and for a variety of other services. It's also an equity issue. A very strong equity issue, because these large corporations that take care of take advantage of sophisticated loopholes, have the staffing, the financial resources to find these loopholes and benefit from them. And small business does not. So our small businesses are not competing on a level playing field. 29 other states have incorporated combined reporting. And interestingly enough, a fairly even split between red states and blue states. About 15 of these states incorporated combined reporting as early as 2004. So there's plenty of history on this. And in fact, if it wasn't working effectively for them, I think they probably would have changed their methodology by now. There's an anticipation that the fiscal note for this particular change in the way we report, the way our large corporations report, could actually add over $200 million in additional revenue by 2006 and up to $240 million by 2029. Interestingly enough, 90% of the largest employers in our state that are not currently using a combined reporting methodology already operate in other states that utilize combined reporting. Now, you'll hear a number of oppositional arguments, as you have in the past, and I want to briefly address each of them because I'm confident my panel will expand upon the benefits of combined reporting and some of the lost opportunity in not pursuing this. So some of the things that you will hear are, it's too complex. Want to say two things about that. I've talked to our controller about this, who interestingly enough voted for combined reporting in 2020 when she was in the House of Delegates, and she does not think that this is too complex to implement. Also, in one of the arguments you might see in your backup claiming that this is highly complex, on the very next page, there's an example of how it would negatively affect a corporation, and that's done in one paragraph. So that suggests to me that it's not that complex. There's also a claim that it's unpredictable. Well, you know, our financial situation does not always have a lot of predictability, but I would say small businesses have far less predictability than large corporations who do sophisticated strategic planning and an environmental analysis and business planning. I would say they actually have far more predictability. You will hear that it hasn't passed yet, so why do it now? I don't think that's a particularly good reason. I believe the time has come. You will also hear past studies quoted. I want to say two things about some of the past studies. One is the Augustine study from 2515. I think it was presented in January of 2016. It devotes about 3 paragraphs to combined reporting and mentions some of the things that I've just mentioned, complex, unpredictability, but no real explanation of how that might affect us. I think that's fairly out of date. Also, there was a pro forma study done by our former controller, but that was done at the height of the Great Recession. So I'm not sure
we did do an extensive study on this. We had a commission to study it too.
What year was that?
Oh, I don't, it was one of my bill.
2010, I think.
chaired it Years ago.
Yeah, I think it was 2010. My point is just that some of the studies were very superficial and other studies are very dated. You know, the data is, most studies after 5 years, it's time to repeat them unless they're extenuating circumstances. You will also hear it's not the right time. I think it is the right time. We have some very aggressive policy commitments. And also you will hear that, oh, we are headed for a recession. Well, there's a lot of new thinking about that. I'll quote a New York Times article within the past month. The Federal Reserve has raised rates rapidly, but instead of cracking, some data point to an economy that's thriving, but the recession calls are now getting a rethink. Finally, you will hear there are winners and losers. I pay my taxes willingly to support the infrastructure and the things that make our state prosperous. Do not consider myself a loser. I want to share with you an analysis my staff has done on 10 of the largest corporations in our state. Some of these corporations were included in a sample letter from the Council on State Taxation. In the fiscal year 2002, these 10 corporations increased their earnings over 2021 by $228 billion. So an average annual increase of about $23 billion. I don't think these large corporations are hurting, and I truly believe they need to pay their fair share. And with that, I'd like to pass the recommendations on
thank you.
to the panel.
We have Callie Schumitz. Go ahead.
Thank you, Senator King and members of the committee. My name is Callie Schumitz. I'm with the Maryland Center on Economic Policy here in strong support of Senate Bill 576. We have long advocated for Maryland to adopt combined reporting because it would make our tax code more equitable while raising hundreds of millions of dollars for the investments that build opportunity across Maryland. Requiring combined reporting is an important step towards fixing our upside down tax code and building opportunity for all. Today, the wealthiest 1% of Maryland households pay a smaller share of their income in state and local taxes than the rest of us do. And we've had consistent data year over year from the comptroller's office that shows that about a third of the 150 largest corporations in the state pay zero income taxes in a given year. In addition, the fiscal note estimates that Senate Bill 576 would raise more than $200 million per year once the full impact is felt beginning in fiscal year 2026. As you all well know, as you're working on both sides of the budget here, well, we're coming into this year in a very strong fiscal position. We know that we've been underfunding public schools even more deeply than we realized with the new poverty calculations. We know that there are great needs in transportation in our state agencies and so many other areas. So we think it's really important to have revenue to address the many different priorities of our communities. And then finally, I'll just say this will level the playing field for small businesses, which we think is really important. We've had the support of a number of small businesses in the past who, they pay their taxes, they're proud to contribute to their communities, and they would like to see their large corporate companies doing the same. So we'd ask for a favorable report on Senate Bill 576. Thank you.
Thank you. Christopher Meyer.
Mr. Meyer was signed up with me.
Okay.
We weren't sure who could make it.
James Ratchiff.
I think he's virtual.
Oh, he's virtual. Okay.
Yeah, he's virtual, and I think he was also potentially caught up in another bill hearing.
Okay, Michael Mazeroff.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I'm Michael Mazeroff, a senior fellow with the Center
on budget and policy priorities in DC, and I appreciate the opportunity to testify in support of SB 576. Combined reporting remains an essential tax policy reform for Maryland if it's to have a fair and robust corporate income tax. Year in and year out, the state suffers significant erosion of its corporate tax base because of corporate tax avoidance techniques that exploit the absence of combined reporting. There are several abusive tax avoidance strategies to which non-combined reporting states are vulnerable, and most of them can't be stopped at all through any policy change other than combined reporting. While Maryland has failed to act on this essential reform, many other states have moved ahead. 28 states, including our neighbor West Virginia, mandate combined reporting, as does the District of Columbia. Over the many years that combined reporting has been considered here, this committee has undoubtedly heard claims that it would discourage corporations from investing in the state in the future and perhaps even cause companies already here to leave. There's no support for such claims. Several years ago, I looked at Maryland's 120 largest corporations. 3/4 of them had facilities in 5 or more combined reporting states, and over a quarter maintained their headquarters in combined reporting states. They will not shun the state if Maryland adopts combined reporting. I do want to urge the committee to remove a provision of this bill providing a new tax deduction to offset a purely on-paper effect of the adoption of combined reporting, and I explain why in my written testimony. I'll be happy to answer any questions about it. The enactment of combined reporting can make an important contribution to preserving Maryland's tax base from further erosion and ensuring the multi-state corporations compete on a level playing field with wholly in-state corporations and other multi-state corporations that don't seek to push the tax avoidance envelope. I urge the committee to favorably report 576 with a deferred tax deduction provision removed, and I thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you. I have one more on the favorable side here. That's Don Griswold. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Don Griswold. Appearing as a reformed tax avoidance enabler. Here's the bad news. Avoiding Maryland corporate income tax is easier than shooting fish in a barrel. The good news, it's incredibly easy to shut it down. For 3 decades, I created and defended multi-million-dollar tax avoidance strategies in Maryland and around the country. As a planner, I co-built and led a 600-person state tax avoidance practice at KPMG. As a litigator, I defended them around the country. And as an insider, I worked in Omaha as executive tax counsel at Berkshire Hathaway. But I quit all of that a year ago, and now I work on the side of tax fairness, and I can tell you what's going on. Here's what you need to know about state corporate income tax avoidance. There are many, many variations on the theme, and high-paid enablers are keeping their clients always 3 steps ahead of you. If you enact a focused rule, they're already way ahead, doesn't matter. But virtually all strategies are a variation on a simple theme. Here's your profits. An avoider moves the profits from the left side of the table to the right side of the table. Maryland only taxes the left side of the table. You're done. Tax the whole table. That's combined reporting. Tax the entire business. It's that simple. The sleight of hand goes away if you do that. So tax the whole table. That's combined reporting. That's this bill. I'm also suggesting, though, that you make a change. You say you have worldwide reporting and then offer an election to water's edge. Imagine 3 pieces of the table. These 2 pieces are in Maryland or in the US. This one's outside. Combined reporting with water's edge.
I just want you to know I've been studying this for about 20 years now, so you're not really teaching me much.
Great, so you got it. You got it. So go with the worldwide.
Okay, we have 2 virtual people to testify in favor. Is SRLEEA? Yeah. Try bringing that in. Okay, would you like to go ahead, sir? Are you here for Senate Bill 576? No. Which bill are you here for?
874.
Oh, that's the next one. Okay, that's the next one. Thank you. Okay, so is there anybody else that we have in favor of the bill? Okay. All right, next we'll head to the unfavorables then. We have Patrick Reynolds, Bernie Marzick, Rob Garagiola, Mary Kane, and Sarah Price.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Bernie Marzick from Cornerstone Government Affairs here today representing Manufacturers Alliance of Maryland, respectfully in opposition to Senate Bill 576. I thought it would be helpful just to provide a very brief history that was mentioned by the previous panel that has studied this. This issue has been studied very extensively in the state. Back in 2010, the Maryland Business Tax Reform Commission was asked to study combined reporting. I think this is what the Madam Chair was referring to. And very strongly recommended legislative leaders to not adopt combined reporting. The commission said, quote, enacting combined reporting would therefore solve a problem that no longer exists while making the tax code more difficult to administer and comply with. It would result in a shift in the tax burden, substantial in some cases among industry and among taxpayers, resulting in winners and losers. The second commission was in 2016, the Maryland Economic Development and Business Climate Commission, or the Augustine Commission, which also recommended to legislative leaders to not adopt combined reporting and said, quote, do not adopt combined reporting and indicate clearly intent not to do so. For the sake of time, I will not go into kind of further quotes from the commissions, but we would ask you to listen to the Maryland economists and the Maryland tax experts who have studied this issue thoroughly, and we'd ask for an unfavorable report on Senate Bill 576.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Rob Garagiola with Compass on behalf of CTIA, Wireless Telecom Association, respectfully here urging an unfavorable on this. I know Senator King, you served on a number of these commissions over the years, and a lot of these commissions have been bipartisan. There have been Republicans, Democrats, members of the prior Democratic administration, the O'Malley administration, and all of these commissions in the past have come to the same conclusion. Combined reporting would not be good for the state of Maryland. Furthermore, neighboring states, Pennsylvania, Delaware, Virginia, they have not done combined reporting. And as recently as 2021, the Commonwealth of Virginia actually looked at this, much like Maryland had, much like Senator King had previously, and came to the same conclusion. This does not make sense for the Commonwealth. So this would not be a good policy from a competitive standpoint. And in fact, I think the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania has reduced their corporate taxes because they want to try to encourage investment in the state. If we enacted combined reporting in the state of Maryland, that would discourage investment. And finally, I'd like you to consider, in addition to corporate taxes, which are an important revenue source, businesses are paying real property taxes, personal property taxes, sales taxes, their employees are paying income taxes. And furthermore, a lot of multi-state corporations that this bill is targeting that we want to invest in the state of Maryland are also doing businesses with a lot of other businesses in the state. And those businesses rely on these larger businesses in order to employ additional people. So with that, Madam Chair, would urge an unfavorable, respectfully, on Senate Bill 576. And if I may, I have another bill I need to testify in another committee if I can
Go right ahead.
run off the panel.
Go right ahead.
Thank you very much.
We heard you best anyway.
Thanks so much.
Mary Kane, welcome. Nice to see you.
Hello, Senator. Thank you. I'm very happy that you're the chair today. It's good to see you too. I'm Mary Kane. I'm the president and CEO of the Maryland Chamber of Commerce. And on behalf of our 6,400 members, small, medium, and large size businesses, we are here to ask you to rule unfavorably on Senate Bill 576. Now, I heard all of the things and you hit all the points in my my talk today, but I have to tell you the complexity of this combined reporting system would require significant training of the comptroller's personnel and would likely require additional staff. And I have been with the comptroller numerous times, and she has complained about the horrible IT that they have there, and that all has to be redone. I don't think we need to put this on top of her. There would also be a need for educational outreach to Maryland taxpayers and tax practitioners. The complexity of the combined reporting system will further add to the cost of compliance by Maryland's businesses and add to the cost of the state's administration of the income tax. Over the last decade, as everyone has said here, combined reporting has been exhaustively researched and debated among policymakers in Annapolis and across the state. In fact, the combined reporting system would result in significant and unintended negative consequences for business taxpayers, including competitive disadvantage, undue complexity, and administrative burden, all while resulting in no guaranteed increase to state revenue. Combined reporting is not a guarantee for increased state revenue. Proponents of combined reporting contend that it will raise millions in additional tax revenue without any data to support that argument. In fact, Maryland's own Business Tax Reform Commission found that instituting combined reporting would result in a shift of the tax burden, substantial in some cases, among industries and among taxpayers, resulting in winners and losers. The commission explained further that the reasons cited in the support of combined reporting have each been addressed through legislative vehicles adopted by the General Assembly and tougher audit methods now utilized by the Comptroller's Office. So within the region, many of our neighbors, as Rob said, including Virginia, Pennsylvania, and Delaware, do not utilize the combined reporting method. In fact, during their 2021 legislative interim, the Virginia General Assembly's combined reporting work group determined that combined reporting was not a more efficient system of deterring abusive tax planning beyond their existing tax policy requiring add backs of certain intercompany transactions, the exact same policy and authority already granted to the Maryland Comptroller. They also found that combined reporting would not cause a sea change in tax revenue collected, and that their results showing 13% of taxpayers would pay more in tax under combined reporting, 14% would pay less, and 73% would pay roughly the same tax. It is detrimental. I just want to, once again, this is something that would decrease Maryland's competitiveness, something Governor Moore would like us to increase. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Patrick Reynolds.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Pat Reynolds. I'm with the Council on State Taxation. It's good to be back in front of you again. For those of you who are not familiar with COST, we are a nonprofit trade industry group, and our members consist of approximately 500 or so of the largest multi-jurisdictional businesses in the U.S. And our mission is to preserve and to promote the equitable and non-discriminatory taxation of those businesses. So in other words, we are not an organization that says we want no tax. Our members clearly recognize that taxes are what we pay for a civilized society. What we advocate for is fair, transparent, non-discriminatory taxation of those businesses. You have my written comments, so I'm not going to repeat those, and a lot of comments or a lot of points have been made. But this issue has been studied across the country, including here in Maryland. And I think that, and I respectfully urge you to listen to the recommendations of those folks that the General Assembly has hired to study this particular issue. And I just want to highlight the points that my longtime friend Don Griswold made when he was up here. And I would respectfully disagree with him that this is as easy as shooting fish in a barrel. Intercompany transactions today have to have business purpose. They have to have economic substance. They have to be at arm's length. If you think that there is anything improper going on, Maryland has already enacted add-back statutes for particular interest in intangible expenses. And at the end of the day, if you go back to that study about the volatility of the income, there wasn't just an economic downturn included in those numbers. There was an economic upturn included as well, and it demonstrates the volatility. I respectfully encourage a disfavorable report on this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. I can't tell you how often I have groups say to me that we need to pass combined reporting, but when I actually talk to them about it, they don't have a clue what it is. It's very complex. It's hard to understand. But they've heard somewhere along the line that Maryland loses out on money by not doing it, but it's very, very misunderstood. Anyway, okay, we have Sarah Price.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, honorable members of the committee. My name is Sarah Price, here on behalf of the Maryland Retailers Association, which, as a reminder, represents businesses of all sizes throughout the state. The panel has spoken to the negative impact that combined reporting would have on Maryland's economy and our competitiveness. The lights seem to agree, and to that, I would say me too. Thank you.
I was just wondering if that was a message. Okay, any questions from the panel? Comments? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, our last but not least, and I'll still say again, we, after this, we have a capital budget hearing. So we have one more bill here on this bill hearing. Senate Bill 874, Senator Washington, come on up.
Thank
You have 6
colleagues. Thank you,
witnesses.
Yes, thank you. And I see there are lots of people who have written in support of the bill, and I hope if they are here in recognition of the committee's time that they are able to say, me too. Hello, Senator Mary Washington here to ask for your favorable report of Senate Bill 871, Community Health and Safety Works Grant Program. Good afternoon, Chairwoman and colleagues. I'm here to ask for your favorable report. This bill codifies the Housing and Community Development Grant Program that has been in existence for the last few years that provided grants ranging from 66,000 to about 100,000 to support more than 54 local business districts across the state and over 250 nonprofit organizations. Likewise, SB 874 would add health to the grant program. And so instead of just Community Safety Works Program, it would be Community Health and Safety Works Program. It would maintain the 10 million appropriation that the level at which it's been for at least the last 2 years. It would be continued to be administered by the Maryland Department of Housing and Community Development, and it would have the purpose of providing the financial assistance to projects that would improve the quality of life within economically, to improve the quality of life and the economic potential of Maryland communities. You could often see this maybe as supportive or additional support for some of our Bernie investments. It makes targeted investments in crime prevention, but constructs these preventions in this legislation in a way that addresses environmental, health and safety concerns in commercial areas, in public areas, along commercial corridors, in general public areas, and in residential communities. There are 3 opportunities within this grant offering. There's a facilities and community improvement, and that would have a request from a low of 10 to 25. So think of these as sort of small projects. The DEX is a larger opportunity for our business districts and neighborhood safety. These grants would range from 50 to 100,000. And then there's the community-centered crime and violence intervention and prevention project. So this would allow both interaction with local police or law enforcement, but also encourage a community, a very strong community component of this program. It would do this by reinforcing community ownership, some solidarity and pride, beautification projects, support infrastructure or capital investments in automobile and pedestrian circulation. Some communities have purchased items that allow them to take photos of license plates that are causing problems in the community. It would also increase opportunities for citizens and merchants to work together to engage in both training and marketing activities. And again, to just support all the work that we need to keep our communities safe and healthy, but also to build up commercial corridors that have been disproportionately impacted by crime, and to allow these businesses to flourish by investing in cleaning, by investing in public safety, and providing supports to pay for some of the operational and program costs that are needed to support community engagement. So I urge your favorable report on this bill, and I look forward to you having the opportunity to hear from some of the communities that have benefited over the last few years. Thank you very much, Madam
Thank
Chair.
you, Senator. Okay, we have Nancy Hafford.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Nancy Hafford. I'm the Executive Director of the Towson Chamber of Commerce. And I'm extremely sad to say that in February, Towson had one of the worst upticks in crime that we've had in a long time. 4 egregious crimes in a matter of 3 weeks, heinous crimes. But the good news is in 2022, I was able to get the safety grant. 65% of our businesses in Towson had surveillance cameras. With this grant, I was able to add cameras to another 50 buildings. And the good news is that 2 of the most heinous crimes have already been solved. And besides the great police work and detective work, the cameras really came into play. The state's attorney, Scott Schellenberger, came and spoke to our group, and he said Exhibit A in both those cases are going to be footage of that camera footage. So, and I'm confident with the other 2 egregious crimes that happened, they've got camera footage of that, and they're looking for the perpetrators right now. The police can't do it alone. And like Senator Washington said, it takes a whole community to work together. And our business community works with our police department, our local officials, and our state's attorney. And we're also going to encourage the judges, because they're the ultimate decision sometimes, that they've got to keep these people in jail when they do these things. So I strongly, strongly urge you to continue this program, because the Towson is a wonderful, great place to live, work, and play. But these surveillance cameras and these programs are essential for us to reach these goals. So thank you, Senator.
Thank you. Dr. Elizabeth Morrison. Not here. Kyla Liggett-Creel.
Good afternoon, everyone. Ooh, y'all have had a long day. You hanging in?
We've got another hearing after this, so we're
All right. Well,
we're on a
keep
roll.
going. It's so good to see you all today. My name is Dr. Kyla Liggett-Creel. I'm with the University of Maryland, Baltimore, and we are here to speak in strong support for Senate Bill 874. The University of Maryland has developed a program called Community Violence Intervention and Prevention Program. We partner social workers. So I'm a social worker, usually wearing jeans, t-shirts, and on the corners of Baltimore. So this is a different setting. And we partner with credible messengers, people who have lived experience with violence, people who have been incarcerated and have strong reputation and pull in the community. We are out there on the corners to try to message around violence prevention, around case management services, and also mediate conflicts. In the past year, we have been able to help 130 people get jobs. These are people who were on the corners, who were at high risk of being involved in violent crime. We have been able to have 2,000 engagements with folks. We have been able to get 96 people vital records so that they could get jobs. And we have been able to get 79 people into drug treatment. We did receive funding from the Department of Housing and Community Development this past January. In the past 3 weeks with this model, we have had over 1,100 engagements on the corners in Baltimore around violence prevention. We are centered in the Upton community, where we have had in the past 365 days, 145 violent crimes. So that means every other day, people and businesses in this community are facing violent crime. We have been able to hold 5 high-level peace treaties, and we have been able to mediate 150 conflicts just in the past 3 weeks. This funding lets us get out there and do the work where it needs to be done. We are strongly in favor. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Chandra Jennings. Did I say that right?
Yes, Chandra Jennings.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and committee members, excuse me. My name is Joan Ray Jennings. I'm the Executive Director of Druid Heights Community Development Corporation. And we would strongly like to express our support for Senate Bill 874. As my colleagues have mentioned, this bill and this support, this financial support, assists in ongoing programmatic areas for crime prevention. I won't go into my full testimony, but we're a nonprofit community-based organization, and we focus on homeownership, self-empowerment, and our biggest goal is affordable housing opportunities. We know that with affordable housing opportunities and revitalization strategies, you want to look at the full community. And so when we're looking at crime prevention, when we're looking at assistance, we really are in support of this because for us in Druid Heights, we have what's called a Clean and Green initiative. And through the funding that we received, we will be able to get lighting, security, and materials for cleaning and greening in our key corridors in the community. These corridors serve as areas that have blight, strong blight, and crime. And so, as my colleagues mentioned, just the security and the lighting itself is a huge support for our neighbors. The community has experienced many inequities within the neighborhoods where we serve for the low and moderate income residents. So this funding is critical to assist with elimination, as I mentioned, of blight and crime. And so again, we request a favorable support for Senate Bill 874, and we appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Brian Alston.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the committee. For the record, Brian Alston, State Circle Strategies, here on behalf of Bon Secours Community Works, as well as Park Heights Renaissance. You have our written testimony, so I'll be brief. We are here in strong support of Senate Bill 874, and we thank the bill sponsor for her leadership on this issue. PHR serves one of the largest urban renewal projects in the state, which includes about 23,000 residents and approximately 500 businesses. The project is roughly 1,500 acres, or about twice the size of Central Park in New York. Public safety is a big concern for all stakeholders in Park Heights. PHR received funding in fiscal year 22 and fiscal year 23 under the Community Safety Works Grant Program, Business District and Neighborhood Security Project section. These funds allowed us to support our business district with enhanced surveillance and lighting, so their customers feel safe to shop day and night. These funds also enable us to launch a pilot security plan program in the business district and a beautification measures to deter crime by our Clean and Green team. Bon Secours Community Works has worked alongside community residents in West Baltimore for over 3 decades. And we see this program as vital for underinvested areas in West Baltimore. And it helps to attract businesses, improve community safety, and as well as increase home ownership. For these reasons and many more, we ask for your favorable report on SB 874, and we thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Thanks for taking the time to come down.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we have there's nobody else here in the room that needs to testify in this, correct? So we have 2 virtual. We just have one. Okay, SRLEEA. Can you identify yourself, sir, and then get started?
Senator King, distinguished members of the committee, good afternoon, or I should say good evening. I'm John Thompson. I'm the Executive Director of Deep Roots Family Homeless Shelter in Earlville, Maryland. And I want to thank you for allowing me to speak today. I know you all have a very tough job finding ways to get funding for all these worthwhile programs. And believe me, I know it's no easy task, but today I want to testify in favor of Senate Bill 874. This is a program that I'd like to thank Senator Washington for introducing. It's much needed within the nonprofit world for sure. I believe that establishing this program as an ongoing initiative will be an excellent step to ensuring the many homeless families and children who often fall prey to criminal element are protected and supported. Let me tell you about Deep Roots and the grant we got recently. Over the last year, we looked at we have about 20 acres and we bring in families with children. Most of the families that come in come from abused relationships. Many of them, their other half is in prison or gets out. It really is a bad situation. And it was so dark there, you couldn't even see your hand in front of your face. And it just made made it a perfect storm for somebody who wanted to come up and do something. We received threats all the time that they were going to come up and grab the children or do something. And we were able to get lighting and we lit the place up. Looks like a football field now. So now they're not going to come around, and we were able to get cameras also so we can monitor it. You know, when it comes down to it, and nonprofits are really the key to thriving communities. And most all of us and my colleagues here on the panel are hurting. The donations are down. Only money we're getting is what the state gives us. And if one nonprofit closes down, that's just a lot of people that are going to hurt and resources that are not going to be available to these communities. So it's very important that you look at this funding and approve this bill. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you for taking the time. Appreciate it. Okay, there's no one else to testify on this. No questions. I think we're good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now, can I say to the capital budget members who are left here, please don't leave. We have to close down for just a few minutes and then start back up again. And we'd really like to get this hearing started. So please don't leave. And the rest of you can leave if